National Women's Hockey League, which launched 3 years ago today. But before that, my journey started back in Tampa, Florida, where I started skating when I was 5 years old. That's me and my older brother there. I went to the rink. The gentleman, I'm sure, behind the counter wanted to give me those figure skates, and I said, no, I want to do what my brothers are doing, and I want to get on that ice, and I started skating. And actually, that year was 1992. It was also the Tampa Bay Lightning's inaugural season, and that year, Manon Rhéaume, who's this woman here, was the very first woman to ever play a game in the National Hockey League. So as a 5-year-old, I saw Manon, and I was like, all right, I'm going to be the very first defenseman to play in front of Manon. There's no doubt about it. I'm going to play for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Rudy Pocek will be my defensive partner, and all the guys on the team, those were my idols, and I was going to defend Manon in the NHL. So, and there was never a question in my mind that was going to be what it was. So that was 1992. A couple years later, 1998, women's hockey was an Olympic sport for the very first time. In 1998, out in Nagano, Japan, U.S. played Canada, and the U.S. women won gold. And that lit a fire for so many young girls around the United States, including me, and including many of the women who are currently playing in the NWHL. And a lot of women have been inspired by this team. The captain of the team, her name's Cami Granado. And that's me a couple years later meeting Cami. And then my goal changed. I was like, all right, maybe I'll still try to play for the Tampa Bay Lightning, but I also want to play for Team USA, play in the Olympics. Like, this is the ultimate. Like, everything in my life is going to revolve around making that dream come true. I'm going to be an Olympian. So I did everything I could. I went to a boarding school up in Massachusetts. Every decision I made was about what I ate, my friends, everything that had to do with my body being my business, and being an athlete was always priority number one. And I was able to bring my hockey career to Northeastern University. This is me on the left. Oh, I'm in both photos, but. So I go to Northeastern, Division I program. I thought I had everything that I wanted. My last year, we won the Bean Pot. For those of you who don't know, the Bean Pot is kind of bragging rights of Boston. So it's BU, Boston University, Boston College, Northeastern, and Harvard competing for this Bean Pot. So single elimination, we beat BU in the final, and that was the ultimate. And that was my last year playing collegiate sports as well. So what do you do next if you want to stay involved in sports? For me, I wanted to stay involved in hockey. But after college, there's really nothing. So while I was in college, I also kind of started to feel that entrepreneurial bug, I would say. And I was in my apartment on Ipswich and Charles Gate East, about 2 blocks away from Fenway Park. Do you guys know Fenway Park? Yeah. So I'm right there, and I see this herd of humans walking by my apartment in April. And I'm like, what's going on? I grew up in Tampa. We have the Rays, but I wasn't really like a big baseball fan. I'm like, oh yeah, everyone's going to the Red Sox game, like opening day. I'm talking hundreds of people walking by my apartment. So I'm sitting there thinking, all right, I don't have a summer job yet. I really don't love working for other people because I like doing my own thing. And this looks like a great opportunity. What can I do to maximize this moment that I know is gonna last all summer? It's like 80-something baseball games. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna make merchandise. I'm gonna sell T-shirts to these people. So I started looking up how to do that. You need a licensing agreement. The Red Sox will never let me use their logo. All these complications. I'm like, okay, what else? So I start looking up how to get a hawkers and peddlers license to sell water outside of Fenway Park. I'm like, all right, I'll sell water. So looking up the rules, you can actually bring a closed bottle of water inside of Fenway Park, figuring out how to make everything work. So I get my cooler, I go down some cold April day, and I start selling water. And it was a hit. I made like a couple $100, which, for a college kid, that was great. That's, a couple nights out. So I'm selling this water, and I start collecting all this data. I'm tracking the weather, tracking what I'm spending on my water, on my ice. My bottles are 9 cents a bottle. I'm selling them for $1 on the way in. I'm selling them for $2 on the way out. I'm spending $5 a thing on ice. I end up buying an ice machine so I can save the money on the ice. And I knew every single part of my business. Actually, the weather didn't matter. I would sell just as well whether it was cloudy or sunny. And all this data I was pulling in, and I was making business decisions based on that data. That summer, I ended up making $30,000 selling water bottles outside of Fenway Park. And I branded the whole thing. The thing was called Hydration Nation, which like the Red Sox thing, like they call it Red Sox Nation, like they have their nation thing. So I called it Hydration Nation. I had signs leading up to my stand that was like, fun fact, did you know a sealed bottle of water and you can bring it into the park? And so I became known as Water Girl that summer, and I had I felt like I could do anything. I'm like, if I can figure out how to pay my rent and do all of these make this sidewalk business work, I can do anything. So I'm done with college. Believe it or not, I didn't want to be a water girl forever. It was a lot of fun. I actually sold the business to one of my teammates. She didn't do as well with it the next summer, but she tried. So anyways, I did my undergrad in communications and marketing, and I went to grad school for sports management. And like I said before, once hockey was done and I wanted to stay involved, really the only way to do that was to get involved in the hockey on the business side, because I wasn't good enough to make the U.S. national team. So if you want to work in business in hockey, you work for the NHL, because that's all that existed. So I moved to New York City to work for the NHL May of 2012. This is New York City. So I moved to New York City, and living on my brother's couch in Queens, and I'm supposed to start work the next week, and I get an email from the man who hired me at the NHL saying, lockout is looming, all summer hires are frozen, stand by. So I'm reading this email, and I'm like, stand by my computer? Stand by my phone? What do you mean stand by? Like, I just moved to New York, I just uprooted everything to try to make this new job work, stand by. So it's May in New York, and I'm living on my brother's couch, which is just less than ideal. So I start walking dogs, I start doing whatever I can to just bring in some kind of income. October of that year, I stumbled upon an opportunity to have storefront in East Harlem, New York. So I go check out the storefront. This is the storefront. And I started doing my market research. So I sat out from 4 a.m. until 7 p.m. In Harlem on this block here, and I would track every person that walked by. 1:11 and second, I'd mark their demographic, age, race, gender. I marked it all up, and I could make the shop anything I wanted. And I decided to make it a coffee shop. So I raised a little bit of capital and opened Rise and Grind, which it was open from 2013 to 2016. Didn't renew the lease, but it was the shop itself was a blank canvas. There was nothing in there. There weren't ceiling tiles. There wasn't flooring. There was no paint. Nothing. So with the minimal budget I had, I actually built the entire coffee shop. So I was YouTubing, how to use a miter saw, how to install tiles, the whole nine. So that helped keep the entrepreneurial spirit alive, I would say. And similar to Hydration Nation, it was an opportunity. There was an opportunity, there was a market, and there was some research done, and all that data helped me make a decision to start whatever that business was. Similar to Hydration Nation, I didn't want to sell coffee. I woke up, once the construction was done, I started my business, and then I was a barista, which wasn't a passion of mine. It wasn't something that I wanted to do forever. So I was very fortunate that it was actually a passion of my brother's. My brother's a hospitality major, and he loved the idea of taking over the coffee shop. So sold the coffee shop to my brother, and in 2014, and that same year, there was another Olympic cycle. In 2014, the U.S. played Canada in Sochi, Russia. U.S. lost, but 4.9 million viewers tuned in to watch that game. 4.9 million viewers. It was the most watched event on NBC that year. So of all the events that you could watch, men's or women's, 4.9 watched the women's ice hockey gold medal game. So I'm thinking to myself, there's no way that somebody doesn't start a pro league in the United States after the 2014 Olympics. There's no way that I'm the only one who sees this as an opportunity. So 2014 kind of starts off, and I start doing the research as to what it would take to start a women's league, and no one else launched one. So I start going, pulling all the data that I can. I think that one of the hesitations behind starting a league is because people thought there was no market for professional women's hockey. So I started doing the market research to kind of prove that theory wrong. I looked up 78% of all Division I NCAA programs are located in the Northeast. 2/3 of all girls playing ice hockey in the United States are playing hockey in the Northeast. So I'm like, okay, well, this is a hockey hotbed, I would say. So I decide that, all right, we're going to have a team in New York, we're going to have a team in Boston, Connecticut, Buffalo, all right, let's make this work. So 4 teams, decided to launch with that, and then the other data that was also very prevalent was the youth hockey movement. Since 1998, when I showed you Cami Granado, girls hockey registration has been growing exponentially in the United States. It's actually the second fastest growing sport in the United States, and a lot of that comes from girls having the opportunity to see these women competing at the highest level. So since we launched, actually, we've seen a spike in registrations, and we believe that our markets have been a big part of that. So if we're told there's no market, so we created our own. And I think that's been kind of a part of our mission and an ethos from day one is we want to build a brand, a business, and a sport of professional women's hockey, but also validate that there is a business in pro-women's sports, not only pro-women's hockey, but pro-women's sports. So where do you start? So if you have an idea and you want to see it come to life, where do you start? Well, for me, it started with a master and monster checklist. And I think this was a great learning experience for me to know that you don't necessarily need to know everything, but there's a way to find answers. So I think the master checklist was helpful because I was able to outsource what I didn't know or leverage my network. As a leader, you almost feel a certain amount of responsibility for having all the answers. So getting to the point where you're okay knowing that you might not have all the answers, but if you have people around you and you're surrounded by great people who believe in the same mission and vision that you do, that you can find those answers through those resources. So the checklist is out. I'm have a plan. We find investors, we find rinks, we find players, kind of get everyone standing around the pool, and we jump in at the same time, and we storm the market. So October 11th, 2015, we asked all of our players to send out a tweet or Instagram post, storm social media, and say, TBT to when playing professional hockey was just a dream. And this social campaign started out as just an idea in our office that we were toying around. And we're like, we'll ask all the players to do it. We did it. The thing went viral. We were on NBC. We were on Sports Illustrated. Every outlet we would ever want to pick us up picked up this social campaign. And we had these images of all these women in our league, photos of them playing hockey as young girls. And that moment taught us that it doesn't matter what the idea is. If you see it through to its execution, you're capable of bringing in data points from that idea. And what's great about living in the social media era and our league, being born into the social media era, is that you can fail fast. It's okay. You have a campaign idea, you toss it out there, doesn't work. All right, focus on the next one. So it was great to have that lesson so early in our existence because, like I said, it taught us that we could move quickly on ideas. So this is Our very first game, I dropped the puck in Connecticut versus the New York Riveters. This is in Buffalo, the Boston Pride versus Buffalo Buttes. And this is Manon Rayon. So the woman that I had on the very first slide who inspired me in 1992, she was here dropping the very first puck for the National Women's Hockey League, and her and I are still really great friends today. And just kind of pretty cool that she was kind of with me in a way, even though she didn't know me when I was 5. Kind of the whole journey. So it was kind of cool to see that go through. So 2015, we play our first game. December 2015, we sign a deal with Dunkin' Donuts, which started with a cold call. So there are many facets to the sports business, and one of them is sponsorship sales and driving revenue. So while I'm operating the league, I'm also making cold calls to potential sponsors, and I give Dunkin' Donuts a call, and after hearing no from many, many other brands, which does teach you to be resilient and have grit and persevere through anything. And if you believe in something enough, you're going to pick up that phone and ask again. So it is nice to get a yes every once in a while. And Dunkin' Donuts picked up and they said yes. Every sentence I started, the brand manager at Dunkin' was finishing. I was like, did you know that girls hockey is the, second fastest growing sport in the United States? I'm like, yeah, that's true. So he was finishing all of my sentences, and it was just a perfect match. So we announced that partnership deal in December 2015. In 24 hours alone, we generated 54 million media impressions, which I have had to ask Dunkin'. I was like, is that good? Like, did we break the internet? Like, is that okay? And they were unbelievably impressed with that number. It was a huge number. And it wasn't because they were doing a deal with the Patriots or the Bruins or brands that you would expect them to back, but they were backing the very first professional women's hockey league, and they were backing a brand that believed in the same values that they did. So we got great media attention and really have been growing our brand and their brand ever since. So since 2015, we've grown our social following to over 350,000 followers. Last year we had 8 million live viewers. An aggregate of the first 3 seasons, we've had over 15 million people tune in and watch professional women's hockey. And we've been exponentially growing since we launched. And one of the coolest things is in the last 3 years, we've paid women $2 million to play professional hockey, which has never been done before. So, and this past year, our 3rd year, our most successful one yet, these are kind of the deal highlights from that year, which taught us, because you want all these people to do the deal with you the first year, the first time you come to market, but there's a tipping point, and it's hard to kind of put your finger on when that's ever going to happen for your business. But if you prove your product and you stay strong and you keep your path moving, some days you're crawling, some days you're running or skating, but if you keep moving towards that ultimate goal, you'll get there. And so of course I would have loved to have done these deals our first season. It made all the sense in the world that we should have done these deals our first season, but they all happened in our 3rd year. And it started with the New Jersey Devils partnering and rebranding our New York club, so this is now the Metropolitan Riveters. A couple months later, the Pagulas couldn't be outdone, so the Buffalo Sabres ownership group purchased our Buffalo club. A couple months after that, well, in February, I should edit the slide. In February, the U.S. women's team goes back to the Olympics, wins gold. Did any of you guys watch that game? Yeah, go USA. So we win gold in February. March, we have just under 1 million live viewers tune in and watch our Isabel Cup final. The Isabel Cup was actually named after Lord Stanley's daughter, as a side bit, if you were wondering why Isabel. So that many people tune in to watch the final. In May of that year, we expand to the state of hockey, Minnesota, which is our first phase of expansion. And then in August, we partner with the Minnesota Wild. And really just an amazing year for us. And we were able to not only prove it to ourselves, but also kind of outwardly prove our product and our sport and the business of pro women's hockey to so many others. And that validation not only came through these transactions, but about 3 weeks ago, maybe over a month ago, Forbes wrote an article, and this is the headline. So I about fall out of my chair at the office. I'm like, what? So this is a huge moment. It's a lot of the business is hand-to-hand combat. Like we're going in and we're pitching something that we believe in, but isn't necessarily outwardly facing, known by others. So to have this headline come out in Forbes really meant a lot to us. I think it meant a lot to our partners as well, and our investors, and to see this was special. It was kind of like a validation moment. And then so that was about a month ago, and this was last weekend. We played our very first game in Minnesota. So the Minnesota Whitecaps, our new expansion team, had their opening weekend. They sold out both games, ran out of food at the concession stands, which has never happened before, so we always like to have firsts, no popcorn first. And it was just an all-around amazing event, and you can just see that, we just had such an amazing impact. And will forever probably be one of my favorite photos. Don't tell Dunkin' Donuts that the little girl's wearing a Tim Hortons jersey, but yeah, just the impact that we're having, not only for this generation of hockey players, but also for the next generation, which is noted here. And so our fourth season has started, and where to next is a big question that people ask. So here's kind of some soft circles on what we're thinking. This is confidentially. This is just this room only. So this is what we're thinking for the next phase of expansion. Maybe some Detroit, maybe Pittsburgh, and then after that, we're looking at maybe Chicago, DC, Philadelphia is on here, Wisconsin. It's important for us that Minnesota's not out alone in the Midwest for too long. We want them to have a rival out in the Midwest. So that's potentially phase 3 and beyond. And just my last slide here is a quote that resonated with me. Risk more than others think is safe, and dream more than others think is possible. So I think that's kind of something that I live by, and I try to calculate my risks, and I try to not limit my dreams. But I think that every day is a learning opportunity, and I'm very excited for what this fourth season has in store, and I'm very appreciative to you all for listening and for being here today.